Contracts. What are they and how do they work? What is a contract? A contract is a legally binding agreement between two parties, which is normally you and the company. Some examples of this is like mobile phone contracts. We've got streaming services such as Netflix and Spotify. There's also car insurance, mortgage, things like that. It's an agreement that defines and governs mutual rights and obligations among its parties. And a contract, it typically involves transfer of goods, services, money, or a promise to transfer any of those at a future date. The benefits of you as the buyer is that you are able to have access to these services that you are paying for, like being able to use a mobile phone, drive a car, listen to music, watch movies whenever you want. And the benefit to the company is that they get paid for you using their services. So like the monthly subscription to Netflix, Spotify, they'll get paid for that. So they benefit by making a profit. But the negatives to contracts are that sometimes you can feel stuck in them because they can be for a large length of time. Like a mobile phone contract can take 2 years before the end of that contract or before you can renew it and get a new phone. And sometimes you want to get out of that contract, and to get out of it, sometimes there's a payment that you'll have to do either to pay off the rest of the contract that you're in. You might have to pay out of it, which can sometimes cost a large amount of money, and people might not want to do that. What is a contract in music? There are many different types of contracts included within the music industry, some of which, to name a few, are publishing contracts, recording contracts, and live performance contracts. In this case, however, I'll be going into detail on recording contracts, how they work, pros and cons, and other things like that. What is a recording contract? A recording contract, commonly called a record deal, is a legal agreement between a record label and a recording artist, group or band, where the artist makes a record or a series of records for the label to sell and promote. Many well-known artists or performers have a recording contract with a label of some sorts. For example, Adele is signed to a record label called XL Recordings, which is meant to be worth around $130 million. Recording contracts are legally binding agreements enabling record companies to exploit an artist's performance in a sound recording in return for royalty payments. So what's included in a recording contract? A music recording contract should include the following: record company details, which is a name, contact info, the artist details, which is the group or band names, the names of each artist and also their contact info. It needs the production details, which is the studio address, the recording session dates, control over song selections on the recording, and control over the album title. It also needs recording details, which is the number of tracks, the length of the album, the release date, the notification of record rejection, re-recording date if you're applicable for that. There's also the exclusive agreement clause, which is a clause binding the artist to the record company, which is prohibiting them from entering a similar recording agreement with another company for the length of the contract. They need the payment of recording and promotional costs, the percentage breakdown of royalties, promotional appearances, which is the maximum number of appearances, appearance fees and things like that. Also the termination provisions on a written notice in the event of a non-performance by either party. So this is an example of a recording contract that will be written between both parties, including the artists themselves and the record label that are signing the artist. All artists that are signed to a recording label are required to sign one of these recording contracts. It is a legally binding agreement that both parties have to follow. Some positives towards recording contracts are that the record labels provide promotions, marketing plans, and artist branding. Record labels also have the finances to promote the artist material properly, meaning that they can advertise it without the artist having to pay for it all. Record labels provide the financial support for the videos and photo shoots, the music videos that they'd have to film. And the record labels also can help get your material into Netflix shows, TV, films, and things like that. Some more pros towards recording contracts is that it increases the amount of available resources and budget. Established record labels have the resources and funding to provide support for mastering, distribution, album artwork creation, marketing, merchandise, touring, music videos, and other expenses. However, the budget does depend on what record label you sign to. It also increases and expands the amount of network and connections you have within the industry. One significant benefit of signing with a label is that their existing network. It can present major opportunities for you as an artist and your music, because without a label, your network and reach to larger audiences is very limited, whereas with established labels you will have a larger fan base, and the labels may also have relationships and, connections with booking agents, music venues, publishing companies, PR companies, and other music industry professionals that can boost your music career. Another pro is that your reputation and influence. Many record labels, especially major labels, have well-established influence and connections within the music industry. They are better positioned to secure licensing and publishing deals, shows at larger venues, festivals, media coverage, and radio plays, and other opportunities like that. On top of that, being signed with a record label, it will give you an implemented marketing strategy. Signing with a record label with a good marketing strategy will increase your music sales, help you reach new fans, and boost your music career. Also, a label may have a large email list and they might regularly send newsletters, have strong social media presence, music media support, and more. In addition, a label will have music industry experience where they can help you. However, there are some negatives that come with recording contracts. For one, there is limited creative control, which means sometimes signing with a record label gives them control over your music. The label can make deals and decisions without your approval. They also have full control over distribution, marketing, artwork, messaging, and more. However, the control over your music and brand depends on the terms that are set within the contract. For example number 2, there are fewer profits. Record labels can take a percentage of the profits generated from music sales, streams, licensing deals, and other revenue sources. Also, some labels use the royalties generated from music sales to pay for mastering, promotion mailers, and other expenses associated with the release. For number 3, there's a transfer of copyright ownership. The record label owns the mastering rights to your music when you sign a deal. They have the freedom to negotiate music licensing and publishing deals without your approval. As a result, they can keep more of the profits generated from these deals. And number 4, there can be bad contract deals. Many independent record labels have artist-friendly contracts. However, some major record labels are known to have contract deals that give the artist a lesser percentage of royalties. Also, signing with a label means you have to deal with these complicated contracts and expensive layers if needed. So here we've got a good example of a recording contract, which is an artist by the name of Adele. Adele signed a contract with Sony Music for $130 million, and this would be the largest record deal for a British artist, and the largest amount for a woman, beating Whitney Houston and Madonna. And Adele will have the largest recording deal for a Briton and for a woman after breaking every single record with the sales of one of her last albums, Adele 25. So here we've got a bad example of a contract, which is Jimi Hendrix's contract. He signed away most of his rights to the music that he would write, perform, and record for 3 years, and in return he would only get $1.01 of the profits from the sale of all of his recordings, which isn't good because he sold many and didn't make money at all. An interband agreement, what is it? An interband agreement is a contract between band members, much like a partnership agreement is to a partnership. It simply outlines how the band will be run. Some of the main issues that are normally covered in an interband agreement include who owns the compositions, who owns the master recordings, who owns the band name, and what happens if a member leaves. The benefits of an interband agreement are everyone knows where they stand in the band, everyone knows how much money they'll get, there are set rules that make it much easier to follow for everyone. The negatives could be that some members of the band might not be happy with the amount of money that they are making compared to, the songwriters or the people who make the music. And even if a band member leaves, the band member could still be entitled to a percentage of the money that the band makes, even though they're not in the band and not doing work with the band anymore. For example, on the right side of this slide, you'll see my band's interband agreement, where we've all come up with a set of rules that we all have to follow, and it's all signed by us.